3-4 days, and all I am talking about is how the rule of law in Turkey is over, and how the freedom of press is in danger, how the freedom of academia is in danger, etc. So I hope that the next time I can come here to talk about more pleasant things, and not only the problems that we have in Turkey. But the problems that we have in Turkey are quite serious, and they're all related to one thing, which is the non-existence of the rule of law in Turkey. It was never a country where the rule of law was perfect, but now it doesn't exist at all. After the coup d'etat attempt last year, we are living under the emergency law. But the problem is that emergency law or emergency law decrees, they are in the Constitution, so they are constitutional per se. But before, the Constitutional Court of Turkey had the capacity and the authority to control the validity of those decrees. But after the coup, the Constitutional Court has decided that it doesn't have the competence to oversee those decrees. And by doing so, the Constitutional Court has changed its jurisprudence, which was quite well established since the early 90s. So after this decision, that means that the government can pass anything and everything by using those decrees without consulting the parliament. So what they have done by using those decrees, not only they have closed down the newspapers or TV channels, not only they have fired more or less 8,000 academics, they have also banned wedding programs on television. They have also passed a regulation about using winter tires during winter. Because now they think that I got nothing against winter tires, by the way, but they're using those decrees in order to make things speedier. Because that means also that they have lost all their belief in the parliamentary system, parliament, or democracy. Because without rule of law, when the government can pass any decree about any matter, anything can happen. They can close down the Constitutional Court, and the Constitutional Court cannot evaluate the validity of that decree, for example. This is theoretically possible, and practically that will happen, or maybe we can consider that the Constitutional Court is already closed down. They're just, earning their wages every month, but they're not doing anything. So, what happened in Turkey? 8,000 academics, they're fired. Some of them, I think the majority of them, they're fired because of their ties with the Gülenist movement. I got no doubt that the ringleaders of the attempted coup, they had ties also, those generals, they had ties with the Gülenist movement. But it's a very big movement with a lot of adherents or sympathizers. And what's happening in Turkey is now a collective punishment for all those people who once attended to Gülenist schools, or who had a bank account in one of the Gülenist banks, which were all legal at the time, by the way. So it's kind of a collective punishment. But it's not, and most of them, I'm sure, had nothing to do with the coup, and they didn't even have the knowledge of the coup or anything like that, and probably they were against such an attempt. And there is also another group of academics who are fired. There are those who have signed a petition last year about peace, about the ongoing struggle in the southeastern region of Turkey. So they are considered as being sympathizers of the PKK because they were trying to defend the rights of the Turkish citizens of Kurdish origin. So those are also expelled from universities. And the other people, maybe the president didn't like the guy or the woman, and they have just written down their name. There's no way to control it. There's no way there's no mechanism of appeal or anything of such sort. And also, those people who are fired from the universities, they have a travel ban, so they cannot go abroad. Mm-hmm. And if they were abroad, if they are fired, they cannot come back to Turkey. And what also happens, some people took a preemptive measure, and they have demissioned from the universities because they have understood that they might be expelled. And what happens is that 6 months later on, they are expelled again. And I'm sure that you think that it's a problem with my English, but it's not. I mean, they are not the part of the university. They have resignated from the university. 6 months later on, they're on the list. They're expelled from where we don't know, but that means that they also have a travel ban, and they cannot enter the public function, and they have lose all their rights for retreat, and they cannot benefit from social allocations or unemployment benefits, etc. So this is the, I think, more or less the general picture is like that. It's quite bleak, and when you also add to that all the pressures on the journalists, etc., and we don't have a very nice and shiny situation in Turkey.
Okay, thank you very much. Bad news for the start, but...
Well, yeah, first of all, I would like to thank the organizers and to give us the opportunity, and to give especially me stepping in for Dr. Stefan Geifers, who has been sadly not able to attend this panel, and I think it will be very sad because it gives us, gives me the opportunity now to be on a panel with you, which I think is a great honor, but also I hope to engage into a discussion with the audience here. As mentioned in the beginning, my name is Antje Schlamm, and I'm responsible in DAAD for scholarship programs in East Central Europe, Southeast Europe, and Turkey. And so my professional experience with Turkey dates back only to 2015, but it's intense, and it's one that is very worthwhile in my eyes. I start with an opening statement, and please forgive me if I read this opening statement. It is meant to maybe raise some questions, or maybe give you the opportunity to ask where you would like to go into more depth. I would like to start my input with a newspaper article that appeared in the Süddeutsche Zeitung just a few days ago, this Sunday, June 18th, written by Christine Pruski, with the title Ausgetauscht, Exchanged, like me, German Academic Exchange Service. In this article, 2 people are given a voice. Young Islam scientist Dr. Pierre Hecker from University of Marburg, who has just ended a short-term lectureship at the BICC University in Istanbul, which was also funded through our section, SC21. And the article also gives a voice to DAAD President, Professor Margaret Wintermantel. And Dr. Hecker's whose stay in Istanbul also served the purpose to establish links with this Istanbul University to provide opportunities for his student at Marburg University to learn Turkish in Istanbul. Dr. Hecker, he voices deep concern about the rapidly dropping number of German students willing to go to Turkey to pursue, to study or research. And this especially since the failed coup last year in July, but also in the German perception, I think even more so about the deteriorating security situation, which is very much in the focus also in German media, and especially in cities like Istanbul and Ankara. Dr. Pierre Hecker, our young DAAD-funded short-term lecturer at BICC University, is also quoted in this article in the Süddeutsche Zeitung with the hope that, and I quote, and I translated it myself, DAAD will rapidly create sheltered spaces in Turkey where free academia can take place, sheltered spaces for academic freedom. So one of our funded lecturers demands from DAAD that we create spaces for academic freedom in Turkey. I think that is worth a discussion. It is obvious that Pierre Hecker perceives, like we probably all do in this room, that the international cooperation, but also academic freedom, is indeed at risk in Turkey. And that also the bilateral exchange, which is indeed, people moving from one country to the other back and forth, is also endangered, not at least through the measures taken by the government in Turkey, imposing, for instance, travel bans and not issuing any travel documents for instance, future scholarship holders. Okay, In this, there was a second voice. In this article, DAAD President Frau Professor Wintermantel has been asked by journalist Pruski the vital question, the Gretchenfrage. Should DAAD continue at all to promote and to fund academic exchange with Turkey? Where's the red line? The question is greatly understandable, I think, against the background which we just heard from Herr Mumcur, and looking at the current situation at Turkish University, where as of 8th of June 2015, since the failed coup on the 15th of July previous year, there was a wave of suspension, but also dismissals, as we've heard, detentions, imprisonments. Currently, around 450 academics are actually imprisoned in Turkey. And a recent article in the Times Higher Education supplement points out the result of a Swedish academic from Lund University, published in the journal Globalization in May, that the number of scholars who lost their jobs is absolute unrivaled in the history of Turkey and Turkish academia, and that is 20-fold as compared with the coup which you mentioned before, the military coup that occurred previously in Turkey. So as of 8th of June 2015, including the fifth decree, because the names of those who are dismissed are published in a public document, around 8,100 academics and also 1,500 administrative staff at universities have been dismissed from their positions, and that involves 125 higher education institutions in Turkey. As you're probably aware, 15 universities have been closed altogether. And at some Turkish university, the number of dismissed personnel far exceeds 100. For instance, that's the case at Istanbul University, with the number nearing to 200, or Ankara University, also Gazi University, is gravely affected by that. And the dismissal is, as you mentioned, on the grounds of alleged support for the coup and the connection to the Fethullah Gülen movement, or also, this is also coming much more to the forefront in recent months, the signing of the peace declaration, which had been mentioned January 2012, where around 1,200 academics from Turkey signed a peace declaration and distancing themselves from the policy of the government in the southeast of Turkey. So, in the last report published, and I'm coming to an end, by the Scholars at Risk Academic Freedom Monitoring Project 2016, which bears the title Free to Think, and covering the period between May 2015 and the 1st of September 2017. A whole chapter is devoted to Turkey. According to this report, this period saw a significant, quote, a significant increase in pressure in higher education in Turkey, including widespread arrests, prosecution, travel restriction, and loss of position. Coming back to our president, Pierre Hecker, and the question raised in the article of the Die Süddeutsche Zeitung. The DAAD's motto is, as you may be aware, some of you, change through exchange. And this applies also, maybe even especially, to academic exchange with people coming from countries where academic freedom or the standards of free teaching and research don't seem to match anymore, or in decreasing ways, the universal standards. Maybe just two more ideas. On the one hand, immediately after the failed coup in July, the DAAD president, Margaret Wintermantel, very outspokenly and publicly voiced its deep concern of DAAD about the endangerment and impingement of academic freedom, as did also the German Rectors Conference, the European University Association, and other bodies. On the other hand, the DAAD seeks to continue to promote academic cooperation and mutual mobility between German and Turkish universities. In 2015, there were around 4,000 people, in one way or another funded through DAAD, in going back and forth between Germany and Turkey. The Turkish-German University, which is one of our major projects in bilateral university education, is a major project that is still further being built up. It is based on an intergovernmental agreement, and it is extended, and we don't, and also our partners in Turkey don't intend to terminate it. So, to conclude the final thesis and maybe answer the question posed in this article, shall we continue or shall we not? The idea has the stance, and I do believe in it as well, though it is sometimes not easy. Our academic exchange, cultural relations don't lend themselves to boycott. And a boycott, a decrease of funding and cooperation, also with partners in Turkey, will finally foster academic freedom. That is, my input. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we should continue just where you now ended with academic freedom. And I would like to come back to what you already mentioned a little bit in the beginning, what it means to be cut off your livelihood, to lose your job. And maybe we could elaborate a little bit on this, because we've heard a lot about numbers, and I think there as well we should put it in perspective. I read that there's between 100 and 130,000 who've been dismissed from state jobs, and there were 10 to 30,000 teachers. You just mentioned over 8,000 academics, compared to 4,000 journalists. Or to put the 10 to 30,000 teachers and academics in perspective to over 100,000, it gives you an idea that obviously the freedom of academics is something that is not given, and it's something obviously in the center of a lot of discriminatory practices. But when you said they lose the rights to get the social benefits and they are dismissed again after they've already quit, you mentioned before when we had a short discussion the civil deaths. That is obviously as well as the aim of those measures. Maybe you could elaborate a little bit on this and tell us what does it mean to lose academic freedom, and how do people still manage to guard a little bit of it?
Well, the pressures on the academic freedom, as I've mentioned, and as you have also demonstrated, it's a part of a bigger picture, of course, because 1/4 of all the judges and prosecutors in Turkey are expulsed, and I think 20% of all the Turkish diplomats are also expulsed, are also fired. So, and all those teachers of high schools, etc., etc. So every fragment of the public service is being influenced by that approach that we are living through. And some of them are good, maybe some of them are not. That's not important, because what is important is that we're facing a collective punishment, and nobody has any means of appealing all those decisions. Well, how can I be, for example, still at the university? And because I'm clearly at opposition with the government, and I'm writing for an opposition newspaper also. Well, there are some universities, some public ones, and their presidents are still have the decency to not to give out names, or they try not to expose people. So, but we never know. We still don't know. But there's no guarantee that it's going to go on like that. And there are some private universities who are also trying to resist the pressure coming from the government, because there is an actual pressure coming from the government. So we have got some little islands of, let's say, freedom of. Academic freedom, but those islands are small and quite isolated and sporadic, and there is also a thing that, not a lot of people really want to go on with the academia, because you cannot see your future. And one of the main problems is that all those bright young students that we have, they do not want to go through the academic path, because of what you are saying, what's happening to their professors and all the other researchers. So we might be not only losing, a couple of generations of academics that are fired, but we might be losing a potential future generation of academics also in Turkey. And I think that is also quite a problem. And when it comes to the everyday life of those people who are fired, but I know from a couple of my friends that they want to start up a restaurant, a cafe, or things like that, because those people, as you know very well, the academics, where can they work? My friend, for example, he's a political scientist. He did his PhD in France. He worked on political science for years and years. He doesn't know anything else to do, so he's trying to build up a restaurant or a cafe, and there is a high chance that he's not going to achieve it because he doesn't have the talent for that, and he's probably going towards the bankruptcy. We're going to help him and go to his restaurant all the time.
But especially if you have a lot of political discussions there, you're probably not going to help him.
That's true. So that's quite a tragicomic situation, but it is also a tragedy. And there are lots of some of the academics who were present at in foreign countries. They stayed here and they found some academic positions here, but they cannot go back to Turkey. And some of them are married, and their partners are left in Turkey, and since they're also expelled, they cannot go back to meet their partners abroad. So some families are shattered, and the mothers and fathers cannot see their children, and etc. etc. So it is a huge problem, and it's not only for the academics; it's also for other people who are fired during that purge. And but it's not a sustainable thing. It cannot go on like that. That's for sure. And I don't know when and how it can end, and I've got my doubts about the boycott. I understand the reasoning behind the appeals for the boycott, and some of the Turkish academics also in Europe, they're calling for a boycott. But if I were to support the boycott, I would be resigning, quitting my job at a public university. I think holding the positions that are still important, and I think international cooperation still has a huge importance, at least for the young researchers who can find a way out, let's say, during that dark period that we are having now. And I'm sure that it's not going to go on like that forever. And one day or another, we have to end that emergency law and that weird regime which is established with those emergency law decrees. I mean, we cannot rule a country with that. And maybe you can rule a newly born country which doesn't have any democratic tradition for a brief amount of time, but Turkey at least is not a newborn country. It has got its democratic tradition, which was quite traumatized by the coups, etc., etc. But we have a multi-party system since 1950s, and we have got the universities going back to the Ottoman Empire. I mean, we got some institutions, and I don't think that I think that all that experience is going to resist to the purge that we are living through now.
You mentioned the boycott and that you don't support it. You as well that you don't bend, and the academic exchange service doesn't support themselves too much with the boycott. But how then is it possible to? You mentioned as well this article in Süddeutsche. What we hear now a lot in the publications is the voices from people that have been stranded here and academics that were part of an exchange cooperation, whatever treaty, and that or have taken up positions here in Germany. In how far can the academic exchange service there make sure that maybe those people can still work in what they're doing? You mentioned those like safe zones inside Turkey. Like, what do you think is feasible? Like, have them here and then make this a strong exile community? And then the question is it heard? You know, the voice of exiled people. You just mentioned that they want to boycott. What do you both think is the role of the exiled person, and what is the chances of having a secured space, a safe zone that DAAD is able to implement? I doubt it, actually.
I doubt it as well, and that's why I quoted it. I think it's an idea which doesn't, which we can't fulfill. And I'm not quite sure even if, Turkish academics, which we, cooperate with, would be happy if DAAD declared, safe zones, sheltered zones of academic freedom as being, the German universities. I don't know how that could work. So I don't think that is possible. And as you just mentioned, I think there's also this, there's also to be asked whether, the Turkish university would, welcome this at all, and how could that be? I think what actually can be done is to keep, the, so to speak, through the academic exchange and through this collaboration in study and research, to keep windows open and to keep the minds open and to provide experiences which are may lie outside of Germany, but also for German students or researchers which lie within Turkey. Because, so to make it quite clear, I don't think that we can create safe spaces. I think nobody can at the moment in Turkey, and DAAD can't either. But we can promote now in the continuation of a dialogue, also continuation with our partners at the Turkish higher education institutions, but also with our scholarship holders or other Turkish academics here in Germany. And I think that's already something, and it should be even increased.
If you allow me a follow-up question, but then how, or is it possible, and if it is, how will you do it to include those 8,000 we've been talking about? Is it as well possible in those exchange frameworks, or do you have to change them to include people that have been fired twice or not, and then create a safe space here in Europe where, because otherwise what you're telling me is keep the cooperation up, but obviously maybe your framework is excluding those that have been already dismissed, and how do you want to include them, right? How is this practically possible?
Yeah. We cooperate in, we are, so to speak, together with the Alexander von Humboldt Stiftung, and I think it's a little bit of a job sharing auch within the German institutions. You're probably aware of the Philipp Schwarz Initiative, which has been, which is under the tutelage of the Alexander von Humboldt Stiftung, and which is especially designed to enable researchers who need to go to exile and to seeking exile in Germany and at German host universities, to provide them with the opportunity to get a position or to be co-funded for a certain period of time. And this is also, this is done through the Alexander von Humboldt Stiftung. It's also linked to the network of Scholars at Risk, which is originally an American foundation, and DAAD is within this board, but I'm not taking the lead for the Philipp Schwarz Initiative. This is with the Alexander von Humboldt Initiative. So what we can't do, which we really can't do, if we we can't support these 8,100 dismissed academics through our programs. We can't do that. I mean, we have to.
Of course, nobody can do that. I mean, how can you create jobs for 8,000 people?
No.
It's just like that. I mean, and we know that even in Europe also you got problems with the budget cuts and everything.
That cannot be the expectation, though we would like to, obviously, and we are aware of that.
You cannot create, I don't know, 15 or 20 Turkish universities in Europe. It's not a viable option, of course. And I don't think the safe zones is a very good idea, because, I mean, the government is also quite paranoid and is always talking about conspiracy, terrorism, and everything, and they're always talking about a huge plot against them. It will be considered like the foreign intervention, and those people who will be working in those institutions will be branded like the foreign agents or spies, and you'll probably put them in prison. At least they're free for the moment.
Exactly.
And, I think going through the classical institutional relations is a better option, because I mean, and how many people can work on those so-called safe zones.
Well, maybe we should not stick to these safe zones too much, because I think there was just some kind of overdrawn hope, which was mentioned now in the Süddeutsche article, to show that the expectations towards what academic exchange can achieve or the DAAD could achieve, that can't be fulfilled. And it is also, as you say, I think it would not serve anyone in Turkey. And I think institutional relations are very much important in keeping cooperation open. And that, of course, excludes 8,100 already dismissed academics. And that is something which is lamentable and which we really observe and would like to see differently. But we have our means in cooperating with your university, with other universities, and open up opportunities of study and research experiences and collaboration.
Maybe as a last one before we open it up to the public would be what you've now already mentioned, is that it's change through exchange, right? Mm-hmm. And use that as well as the safe zones isn't a very good idea, and I didn't see that you support the idea of having a lot of academics here in Europe that speak with a strong voice of a diaspora, because I think for the same reason it's a conspiracy then, and it will not be perceived as something truly independent if it's completely isolated. But how much sense does it make, and what options do you have if you, now going a little bit beyond Turkey, cooperate with a little or completely authoritarian regimes? What do you think is possible, and what should be done?
I think the international exchange programs or international cooperation would help mostly the junior researchers, the PhD students, for example, to seek an academic path, at least abroad, until the authoritarian period of the country diminishes or just vanishes. So it is a way for them to go on with their academic life. So I think that's why the international cooperation should go on. And let's not forget that, at least on the paper, Turkey is still a candidate to the European Union. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's not only the academics' job, it's also the job of the governments to try, or the European Union also, to make some more pressure to Turkey and for the democratization of the country, because we cannot solve those problems case by case. I think it's all related to the wider rule of law and democracy issue. And cutting the international cooperation, boycotting it, is only going to help the authoritarian regime, which already wants it, so that they can use it for the public opinion, telling that the foreigners, they hate us. You see, now they're just cutting all the relations with us, because all those authoritarian regimes, they adore looking inwards and telling the people that everybody's against them and isolating their people from the outer world. So I think the boycott would only help the government. But on the other hand, I understand the frustration and the justified anger of my colleagues who are abroad and who are appealing for the boycott. And I really understand their rationale and their motivation. But for the moment, at least, I cannot agree with them.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting, to know more about, how you perceive academic freedom being impinged on, because as I understand from my, not very sound insight into the situation, it seems to me that what you also mentioned, that for instance, if there is a connection to the Fethullah Gülen bank account, this person is dismissed, and not on the ground of his publications.
Yeah.
And I think it would probably be worthwhile also in this discussion, or I'd be interested to see, what exactly is, the situation in Turkey, and where is the impingement on the academic freedom. Of course, we have seen, and I've tried to point this out, that we see that very drastically, that there are civic deaths all over the place. But for those academics who are still, in their positions like you are, there is this threat hanging over you that you can be, completely willkürlich. For no reason, you can be dismissed. So, but how far does this translate into self-censorship in your work, for instance, or do you feel that there is already in academia, in your case, for instance, in the field of law, a tendency not to think the same things which you've thought about 2 years ago?
Well, I mean, it doesn't touch all the fields of science, of course, but it touches political science, sociology, and law, etc. Well, I work in public international law, so for me it's easier. I can write about another country. But yes, of course, the self-censorship is there, and it's also there at the newspapers. I mean, and it's quite natural that it is there, because while you're seeing that everybody is dismissed from the university or expelled from the university, you cannot just criticize it in your academic article, and I don't think anyone is going to publish it anyway, at least in Turkey. And if you may publish it abroad, probably you're going to be sacked from the university as well. So, of course, there's self-censorship for those people who can at least academically write or scientifically write about the situation.
That it's the last question, but a follow-up, because what as well is a scenario where you have risks, and I think a risk we didn't speak about, because now as well we assume that there's a lot of critical academics, and they either self-censor themselves or don't. Yeah, and the big question is like, can we support them? And we already talked about 8,000 that have been dismissed, but I think a lot of people that still stay in power, they are as well supporting or staying in their jobs, are supporting the regime. And now, if you want to keep in touch and say we actually hope that through exchange we're going to have change, the risk might as well be that you have the contrary, because the people that are still left in their positions are the ones to the people still in power. Yeah. And by promoting their exchange, you spread the gospel, which might be the wrong one, right? We just said that the 8,000 can't be invited, and if we now, it's not only over your head, but look a little bit into the future. Maybe sooner or later all of them are gone, and then the only ones you can invite are the uncritical ones and the convinced ones. And I met them. You meet the Turkish academics at international conferences that tell you, no problems. We have freedom at home, and it's just your news that tell you otherwise. You don't know how and those are the ones that might be in the exchange service. Yeah?
Then you're saying that basically we cannot have the good ones, and if we keep
not looking at
we're going to have the baddies.
No, we didn't talk about them, right? No, they exist as well.
Of course
they exist, but I mean, it would be doing exactly what our government is doing now. I mean, it would be collective punishment of people because of their political beliefs. I mean, if he or she is a very good scientist in his or her field, I don't care if that person supports the government. I mean, I would think personally that that person is not a very good person. But apart from that, I don't think that should be involved in scientific cooperation.
I mean, the selection criteria in DAAD funding is always the academic or the scientific qualification and value of the project. And selections are conducted through university professors from Germany, or also in binational panels, for instance in our master grants, where we have Turkish and German professors. And I would agree that if you go down this road, to say those who are currently in Turkey at German universities must be the bad guys because they are still there, I would oppose to that, and I'd say that we have to, or that I would prefer, and that DAAD suggests that we continue to fund very good scientists, and they may be supporters of the government, and they may be also not supporters of the government, but they haven't been sacked yet. But they have the opportunity to, to go to a DAAD, through a DAAD scholarship, and bring back maybe home other ideas about how things may work, how the rule of law may work, or democracy, or even make their career elsewhere. So
just now to open this up, I would rather insist that what I meant is not to say they're all bad guys, but that this is a structural problem. Because if you can't be published, then you will not be a recognized scientist, and you have to see that in the long run, what you have to work with is what your structure is allowing you to. And if they, as we said, don't have a job, and I'm not saying exclude the bad ones, I was rather looking at the ones that have no chance to be included, right? But this is something maybe we can...
I was just caricaturizing it.
Yes, me as well a little bit, I'm sorry. No, but I don't want to belittle that. That is always the problem, or the problem which poses itself. But if you are not, conducting academic exchange, only with, say, France. Okay.
But as I said, maybe a lot of you have something to say about this or questions, and I already see the first one, and as well for the others, please show me that you have a question so I can note it down and we don't get confused.
Yes,
Thanks.
my name is Michael Szyminski. I'm a media and communications professor at Schlamm, St. Augustine, and we had academic relations with the University of Istanbul for about 10 years with the Iletişim Fakültesi. And I had the privilege to be in Istanbul the year before the coup. And I think what I experienced there, and looking back, was even more bitter than the coup itself. It is that 1 year before the coup, a process started, which you could say as a spiral of adapting to dictatorship, adapting to authoritarianism. People divided themselves, the divisions between them and us getting greater. The fear creeped into the institutions. And regarding, observing that process of spiral of getting to grips somehow with an authoritarian change was even worse, looking back, maybe than the coup itself. It was a very, very bitter experience. And I think what we should learn from that is that whenever you find that this situation came into a real coup and into a purge, what will be the next step? In history, there was always, after two such phases, there was a next step. And so I think we should not get into a spiral of being comfortable. And I heard so many rationalizations to me. My strong argument would be, I'm a strong defendant of not doing a boycott and not banging the porcelain. But I think it is very, very important that we keep aware every day, and we have such sessions every month, observing what is happening, because I really fear it will be the 27th time in history that this spiral of adapting yourself to authoritarianism, then having a purge and having such a situation like now, normally it was followed by a much deeper and more sad feeling. I'm very much afraid of that, and we should not rationalize into a spiral of getting comfortable with the situation. Let's be aware, let's go ahead, rather than being comfortable. And we should be very humble and not be proud of being comfortable. We should not be proud of not boycottizing. We should be very humble and very, very much aware. That is my personal, very emotional experience in this year, which you can, otherwise you share that with Latin American authors who have observed the period before dictatorship starts.
Maybe have another one, and then you can respond to it.
I would like to know Mr. advice to Germany if obviously Erdogan is coming to the G20 summit and then he wants to meet Turkish people in Dortmund probably. Thousands of them will come. I would like to hear your advice to Germany. Should they just allow it, or should they try to forbid it?
I'm not in a position to advise anything. I think they should just allow it, because the last time it wasn't allowed in Holland, it played in the hands of the government, and it was a masquerade on both sides. And I really do understand the reticences of living and having his rally here. And personally, I'm against holding political rallies abroad, by the way. But the government would be using that, saying that again that the whole world is against us, etc., etc. And but maybe you can have some restrictions, etc. That I can understand, of course, but banning it totally would just only play in a sense, and I think the government will do anything so that it's going to be banned. And for your constitution, I totally agree with you, and I'm not comfortable with the regime, or I'm not rationalizing it at all, because I work in a newspaper where 13 of my colleagues and friends are in prison, and we're trying to write about it and protest and criticize it on a daily basis. And I also fear about the same path of dictatorship, because it's more or less the same everywhere in the world, and we might be going through that also. But we shouldn't also forget that during that referendum that we had, okay, the Erdogan won the referendum, but first of all there were lots of irregularities, and it wasn't a fair game. Before the referendum, it wasn't fair enough, and I am personally still not sure if they really won it. But even under those circumstances, the result was 51-49. And the Erdogan lost Istanbul, Ankara, and Izmir. And when you look at the demographies of the voters, you see more or less the same thing with Brexit or with the Trump's victory. So the young urbans, they are not voting for him. So that means that Turkey still has a hope. At least half of its population are still saying no. So if we can convince, I don't know, maybe 5% of those people who are voting for AKP, I know that I'm quite optimist here, but there are still a lot of people who are voting for the economic stability, etc. They don't, ideologically, they are not for them, or they are not hardcore Islamists or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So we can also convince some part of the population, we can change the game. I know it is going to be very difficult and probably impossible, but I think that's the only thing that we can do right now.
I can only support that.
Thanks for the excellent presentations and bringing the issue. It's such an important aspect, and I think we have so many different dimensions of the problem already going on in Turkey that we can talk about this for hours. But I would like to just make a small comment about the scientific aspect of the issue, since we have the panel titled. One of the significant aspect of the science making or the scientist is the ability to take ourselves from the incidents, from what's going on in reality, try to understand it without putting ourselves inside the event. So that's ideally our job, to somehow give a proper explanation of the situation. So for Turkey, it's not possible, because like everybody is involved and everybody is affected. So when you discuss how we should support the people there, so that we can at least save them from the misery they are going through, is I think it should be taught in a way that we need to encourage their thinking or scientific thinking, because there are many issues that has to be brought to the world that's happening in Turkey not properly explained, especially not properly explained in the scientific terms. Because, for example, like, thank you for bringing up the issue, like we have a lot of issues discussed in the authoritarian regimes. What I see in Turkey is there is an early symptom of totalitarian regime construction going on in Turkey. That's institutional. Whatever you support institutionally in Turkey is going to help somehow the institutional structure. So that's the risk of, giving support and, supporting the institutional structure of totalitarianism, whatever. But there's still hope. So the scientific looking at the issue, I think what we need to do is to look for specific projects or arguments that directly explains the issues happening in Turkey within the scientific terms. Because I may be in a different position politically. I can see the issues differently from my colleagues here, or someone else who's in Turkey being affected by the regime's oppression. But science tells the same story, almost the same story, to the same type of circumstances, unless we change our theories or the way we look at the issues. I think that's the point we need to start. Okay, we have a group of people who are personally involved in this case, it's not possible for them to take themselves out of the box because they are affected, but still they can support us to understand what's really going on there. I think that should be a starting point, how we can, or how West, because what's in question in Turkey is the Western ideas, not like institutions can be replaced, institutions can come and go, but the ideals, if they go, it's very difficult to bring them back.
So again, have a second one, and then you have a round of.
Thank you very much for your very interesting insights due to your different professions and your experience in Turkey. I myself have been working in Turkey for 4 years, and I returned last year in October. I've been working at the University in Mersin at the Department for Translation Studies, and afterwards I also have been working at the Turkish-German University in Istanbul. And I am really, and now I'm here working at the Department for Oriental Studies in Cologne and Bonn as well. I'm really pleased, and I'm glad to hear that there are still so many people that are defending the corporations that are still going on, and that support also the cooperation of the Turkish-German University, for instance. For example, and you also have been talking about academic freedom and so-called safe zones establishing in Germany or in Turkey or whatever, as a metaphor, surely. Well, I have been working at the Turkish-German University for 9 months. It hasn't been a long time. I decided to concentrate on my PhD thesis at the Bonn University, and I was wondering what the DAAD thinks about the cooperation. Or is there anything be done, or can there be? Is there anything that could be done to not to guarantee, but to enable some kind of academic freedom at the Turkish-German University, for example? Is there anything in development? That was my question.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know whether we get an extra 5 minutes or whether you are still having questions, but maybe we take this as the last one, and I want to just paraphrase what you've to that and ask again, like, what is it that can be done to avoid reinforcing the structure that you want to change, right? Because this is possible, and link it up on the positive way as well. What can be done to then guarantee the academic freedom, or somehow re-establish it? Because I think there is a risk that, as you said, you might reinforce the contrary of what we talked about, and I think everybody agrees now boycotting is not the idea, but apart from this, what could be done, should be done.
I agree that it's a dilemma, and this is why we're discussing about it. And what you have said, I totally agree about that also. But I'm not in a position again about deciding who is going to have which grant or which cooperation is going to happen in which ways. But yes, I think. And I think we're probably doing it also. I mean, avoiding to have the cooperation with those people in their scientific work, or defending the government, because defending that government is also defending the violations of human rights, etc., etc. So it's also against the principles of scientific work that we know. But I agree, it's a very difficult decision to make, but I mean, that's why it's a part of a bigger problem. We have to resolve the deep problem in Turkey. If we can resolve it, that part is going to resolve it on its own. But for that, I think we need another government. I mean, we cannot do it with that one, that's for sure. I have no hope that that government will just one day decide that they're going to be democratic again. They can play a little bit along those lines if they think that they're going to have some advantage out of it, but it's not going to be sincere, and it's not going to last very long. And I don't really know about the German Turkish University much, but I worked French-Turkish university. And Galatasaray University was founded by an international treaty between the governments of France and Turkey. And I can tell you that it might provide some kind of extra safety or extra security, but it depends on the clauses of the treaty, of course. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if the treaty has been done yet. And I don't know, one should just read the articles of the treaty and maybe find a way to give some extra safety for those who are working there. And you have mentioned the University of Mersin. Right? It's one of the universities which is affected most by all those purges, and I got a lot of friends there who were fired. And
some of them are here now.
Yeah, I know. And it's a question of luck also. If I was working for the University of Mersin, probably I would be expelled today. It really depends on which university that you're working on.
You didn't want to have the starting words, now you have the concluding ones.
Oh, okay. But I'll try to be very brief. Thank you very much for all of your comments. I completely agree, also completely agree with your observation and your concern. And I find it hard to have the final word to this. The German Turkish University, it is also
Turkish German University.
Turkish German University, right? Is
that's an important issue. They have been discussing it always.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Find another name.
I'm not meant to.
No. And you're right in correcting this. And I think it can be. It has the potential to be an ongoing space where study and research between Germany and Turkey can be interlinked. And I wouldn't say it is. It can be a safe space because, as you pointed out, we can't create those without endangering those who are obviously in a need to.
It is not at all.
Exactly.
It is not at all.
And so,
because I'm sorry, I'm not interrupting again. I'm very sorry. As it is a project between governments, I mean, my change from Mersin University to the Turkish German University was quite a culture shock for me. Mm-hmm. Because in Mersin, though the university has been affected quite much, you still had a diversity of different students, of different cultures. But this is not the case in Istanbul, Turkish German University. It's different.
It is different. It is different, really, in many ways. And you're right. It is also a Turkish university, the Turkish state university, bound by the legal framework of Turkey. And this is mainly German Turkish, but it's also also now leading a project to integrate Syrian refugees into the German Turkish University, and also in.
I have been teaching in this class.
Okay, good. So, but I think this leads too far and is not really fit for now if I try. But I'm happy to talk about this, but I don't want to occupy it. Well, I think the problem of reinforcing the structures which may head into an authoritarian or dictatorship is certainly a question which we have to keep in mind. That's true. But then we should also, and that is probably my view as being engaged in individual scholarships, we should also believe in, I'd say, the people who are actually doing this exchange. Yeah? I think there are personal experiences which can change people, which will change the nature of their perception of the world. I don't say that there is a liberating effect in that sense that we can, up front or that we can hold on such a development, but I think it is extremely important to keep the doors open for people crossing over from one system to the other and informing each other about their ideas, and I think that is something which can be liberating, and that is the only hope, though it's only a small hope, that we can do foster a positive outcome as well.
It's nice to stop with a positive note, so let's keep this hope. Thanks to the organizer, thanks to everybody for coming, especially to our great speakers. I think they deserved a round of applause, and see you maybe here whenever again. Thanks.
Thank you.
I really didn't want to go excluding the bad guys. I just want to make sure that you don't.
I don't want you to misunderstand. Sometimes I do it because I write for the newspapers. It's just a mistake.
No, but there's a risk, right? Like if you dismiss all the ones you don't like, and then they can't invite them because they're not in an academic institution. This is something to be kept in mind. I don't say exclude the others, but how to include the ones that have been excluded. That's important.
There might be a preparation. I'm not for sure.
Just change the rules. Whoever has been an academic in the last 5 years is eligible.
Yeah.
Instead of having a position. That would solve it. It's easy. That's right.
There's all that, but I cannot really say it out loud.
If they do it on a global level, it's not against Turkey. Right? I will tell her. It's like, if you don't have it, it's an easy way to say, well, who's ever been there in an academic position? More than 2 years, maybe you have other dictatorships where for 20 years they've been dismissed. But if you tell them if they've been there for 5 years, how did he not get sacked? They have other funding, right?
Not all from those who are at the administrative level are necessarily with the government. But yes,
and they keep working on it.
yeah.
They will further try as they kick all the people they don't like out, unless they find out that now the academic, that if they don't have any teachers, there's a limit, I think. Right? If it causes too much cost.
I think that's one of the reasons why it was fired from
The cost is too high, right?
But when the University of Istanbul, maybe we can arrange it because the university
But I don't want to keep you away from people asking you. We will still have a beer.
Let's